and good afternoon. Again, another just a little correction. 2010 has been declared Year of the Metis by the provinces of Saskatchewan, initially in Ontario, and by the federal parliament. But the government of the Métis Nation, we declared Year of the Métis Nation. And I always try to ensure that when we address it internally, it's Year of the Métis Nation. And it's a good way to start because there may be some of you here that are not familiar with the Métis Nation. You may be familiar with the term Métis and the different ways it has been used over the past number of years and today as well. Anyway, in terms of who are the Métis, we say that who we are. We can't say who anybody else is, but we can say who we are. We are an historic nation. Our homeland basically covers the three prairie provinces and extends into the provinces of Ontario, British Columbia, the Northwest Territories, and part of the northern United States. So that's our distinct geographic homeland. And we are a people because we do have this common territory. We have a long history. Well, not that long. It's a short history, but for us it's long. It's some 400 years old after we evolved as a distinct Aboriginal people, not part Indians and part something else, but as a distinct people on our own. And I have to say I'm quite pleased that the Supreme Court of Canada in 2003 was able to grasp that concept in the Powell case and agreed that Métis rights flow from the Métis people ourselves, and that our Aboriginal rights came into being with our coming into being as a people, and the test being prior to effective European control as opposed to invadergy for the First Nations people. Indians, as they're described in the Constitution, their rights have to have evolved pre-contact, but by definition, in the dictionary, that would exclude the Métis, particularly the Métis Nation. And what I say by definition, a lot of people simply refer to Métis as anybody of mixed ancestry, as Métis. And so if you don't fit under the Indian Act, if you've been excluded, then you're characterized as being, Métis. And of course, we've been fighting that since 1983 to ensure that, at least for us, we are recognized, as such. And we do have a group identity. We have a language known as Michif. We have culture, customs, music, dance, dress. We have a flag, which will be 200 years old. In 2015, we first flew it at the Battle of Seven Oaks, which is now within the modern city of Winnipeg. In 1816, when we first used our military might to defend our position in our homeland. And of course, we have a sense of solidarity. And in 1870, when the Hudson's Bay Company was selling in Western Canada, from under the feet of the First Nations and the Métis Nation, we stood up, and again in 1885 we stood up our last armed battle at Batoche, where unfortunately after 3 armed battles at Duck Lake, Fish Creek, and then Batoche, we were militarily defeated, but we continued to exist. We didn't go away. And the Cree have a term for us. It's called Otipimsu, the people that own themselves. And so that is how we were known and continue to be known. And so with that, and it was a war, and with that, the federal government chose to deal with us as individuals, not as a people, not as a collective. And while entering the treaty number 1, in 1871, they dealt with our people, as I said, as individuals, and the Manitoba Act, which was a subject of negotiation, Section 31, provided for 1.4 million acres to the Metis, but when it was written out in Parliament, it said to the children of the half-breed heads of families. And then it said to be determined, the distribution be determined by the Governor General and Council, as opposed to the Metis themselves. And while the Metis wanted it in a block, at the end of the day, it was given up by lottery. It took some 10 years. And of course, the troops also came west, as I say, in 1870, even though it was a peaceful settlement. They did have an occupation. There was a reign of terror, there was murders, rapes, and all that goes with occupation forces. And a lot of Metis did leave the Red River. Those that stayed didn't really end up with any land. Now, then they realized the mistake that the parents were dealt with. So the Dominion Lands Act, which was passed to regulate the lands in the West, provided for scrip, a document to the heads of families for X numbers of acres. And that basically was instituted over a number of years as well. But basically, the Metis were displaced and dispossessed, and that didn't mean much for them. In 1879, for the Metis outside of the original postage stamp province of Manitoba, which is only 50 miles by 150 miles, the Dominion Lands Act was amended to provide for the distribution of scrip to the rest of the Metis. And it wasn't implemented until basically the shots were fired in March of 1885 at Duck Lake, and a commission was sent out, and commissions did come out to the west over the intervening years till 1921. And they gave two kinds of scrip, money scrip and land scrip. Money scrip was a coupon that basically said your name is entitled to 240 acres of surveyed Indian lands. And money scrip basically said the bearer is entitled to basically $240 for the purchase of open Indian lands. See, the land scrip was 240 acres. And basically land at the time was $1 an acre, so money scrip just facilitated speculators. In fact, in the Blake case, which came down at the same time that the Powley case came down, the Supreme Court of Canada referred to the scrip process as a dark chapter in Canada's history. Now, hopefully they'll do more about it if we eventually get in front of them in terms of the land rights issue. So I mentioned the Manitoba Act. There were many, many problems with it. In fact, the province of Manitoba also passed legislation which lowered the age of the children from 21 to 18 so that children could sell their lands. Just facilitate speculation. In terms of the scrip process itself, we have had a lot of difficulty as well. But let me get back to the Manitoba Act. The Manitoba Métis Federation did take out a claim in 1981, just at about the time when patriation was going to be taking place and when there was a promise to include what's now Section 35 in the Constitution, and to include Métis in the definition of Aboriginal peoples. We received in March or April of 1981 a letter from then Minister of Justice Jean Chrétien saying, after they made this agreement, that for the Métis, the rights were extinguished. But they said, the court said we have some rights we respect. So they said, we're putting it in, but you don't got none. And so that precipitated that legal action. In December of 2007, the Manitoba Queen's Bench came down with a ruling on that case and ruled against the Métis on every legal issue. Earlier this year, the Court of Appeal upheld the decision but made some favorable findings, which I won't get into. And the Manitoba Métis Federation is seeking leave to appeal to the Supreme Court of Canada. With respect to the Dominion Lands Act, the Métis in Saskatchewan, northwest Saskatchewan, where I come from, and the rest of the province and the Métis National Council decided to use northwest Saskatchewan, where scrip was given out in 1906, 1907 during the negotiations of Treaty 10 with the Korean and Dene, agreed to use that as a test case. And it's a good test case because the people that received the land, or the land in money scrip, could only use it where it was open and surveyed, so they'd have to move about 300 miles south and move the trapping grounds, the hunting grounds, leave everything they knew and move to south somewhere. And of course, nobody did, and some 8 to 10 speculators traveled with the commissioner, and they bought up all the entitlement, right on the spot. So we believe it's a good case. There's a lot of personation, there's a lot of forgery. The problem is, and it's war, basically, in the courts. The federal government's lawyers have really pressed us, and we don't have the resources to go forward. And in 2004, they got an order against us to disclose all of the drafts that are being done, all of the documents from the archives that we rely on for our reports. And we have the University of Alberta doing the research for us, and they're engaging students who are also doing master's theses or honors papers, and they want all of that, so there's intellectual property issues involved. It's very massive. In connection with that, the Metis in the Northwest have a community university research alliance with the University of Alberta and Saskatchewan, again, to find ways to try to get the research done, for our case. And we have been doing traditional land use mapping and interviews of our elders and getting them digitized and stuff, so we're moving, forward on that. And one of the outcomes of this research union under the Social Sciences and Humanities Research Council would be Metis of the Metis of Northwest Saskatchewan. So we're hopeful that we can move forward on that. So basically, just to finish off, we are defending our lands the best way we can. The only exception is in Alberta, there was land set aside in 1938. So there's 8 settlements. They have 1.4 million acres of land, and it's basically run similar to the way INAC does it for First Nations. It's more municipal type legislation that guides them. And we are excluded from the comprehensive claims because of this one letter that says we have no rights, they're extinguished. And we can't go to the specific claims or other claims because it's only open to Indian bands as defined by the Indian Act. So we're totally excluded. The only place we have is the courts. And just to finish off, those of you who aren't aware, there's John Weinstein has written a book, Quiet Revolution West, Rise of Métis Nationalism, published in 2007, explains a lot of this. And I myself, I have a book coming out, it's called Witness to Resistance, Under Fire in Nicaragua. It'll be out next month under Baco Publishing. And I raise it because Russ is talking about South America, and that's a situation in Nicaragua where the Indian people actually went into armed conflict. And today, they will be getting all of their lands demarcated and self-government on the lands with Indian government, not public general autonomy. And I think it's a good example. And finally, I'm working with a number of other individuals to try to get an organization of the Americas, Indigenous leaders of the Americas together so we can collectively, work to defend our